questions. Keep me busy. Right, okay. I'm all set there now, so if you want to go, you can do.
Brilliant, thank you. And good morning, Nicole and Stephen as well. And thank
Yamini
you.
just joined in.
Yeah, and Yamini, thank you for joining there. So with that said, we'll go ahead and we'll start. And thank you again for joining the Bookkeeping Essentials webinar today. My name's Armand. I'm part of the client services team here at Canor and hosting today's call. And of course, we are joined by Justin McGreevy. Justin's a VAT and bookkeeping expert here at Canor, manages the team here who will oversee those services for you. But
Good morning, guys.
Justin, of course, thank you so much for the time. I always find that I learn quite a bit from your webinars. It's always very informative.
A lot to pack into an hour.
Absolutely. And for those who may not be familiar with Canor Business and Finance Services, we're an award-winning online accountancy and company secretary practice. We cater for businesses across Ireland and the UK. Our members are part of the Chartered Accountants Ireland. Payroll specialists are IPAS qualified. We are Zero Platinum partners. I suppose, Justin, if we go into all the awards, we'll need a separate webinar for that.
Indeed, indeed.
But the important bit from this particular slide is the digital processes which we use to streamline services, making them much more effective for our clients, as you'll see in this webinar. For today, the information that's going to be shared is for general information purposes primarily. If there's any specific advice that you do require, we always suggest speaking to your accountant. If you don't have an accountant, you can always reach out to us on any of the details below. It will be on the following slide. You'll note on all of the other slides, then thereafter, there'll be a contact number along with a hello at Canor. And then, of course, you can reach us on our web chat. Please feel free to do so at any time. Before we get things really going, I'd like to ask the attendees just for your help on the following section. I'm going to run a quick poll. It's simply just to get an understanding of what your experience is like with accountancy software. There's no right or wrong here. It's simply just for us to get a better idea, I guess, Justin, just to see how deep we should really go with today, because of course you can spend a lot more than just the hour.
100%.
There we go. I've just asked a question there, basically just asking what your experience is like with accountancy services. Okay, so thank you for the quick feedback there to all the attendees. It's a bit of a mixed bag, Justin. We've got some, a little, and none. So I think truly this will be informative. Again, if you have any questions, what I'd also like to do is also encourage you. We do have a Q&A section where if at any time you have any questions, please feel free to put them there. Sometimes a question may come up after the webinar. Feel free to reach out to us then as well. We'll be happy to help. But with that, I've just ended the poll and I will hand it over to you, Justin, just to get us going on today's agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So a couple that will join us through it, just in case you're worried about anything that you might have missed. There will be a full recording that's there. I suppose I try and cram a good amount into the time that we have. So there's always a fair amount of information and everything that's there. But the idea is that you can have the recording, you can look back over things. So I will use zero just in the slides, but because the important thing for you to understand is it doesn't matter what accounting system you are on. The big thing is use an accounting system, use a cloud system, and it's the benefits around that. So what we'll look at is just, I suppose, a little bit about understanding the basics of bookkeeping, how to get everything set up. I'll touch on recording VAT. I suppose VAT is my, if I say, main pastime, Armand. There's just so many areas in terms of VAT and the legislations and the requirements, and that I could talk for the rest of the day on it. I probably wouldn't be the most exciting one at a dinner party if you want to battle advice, but like I have it there. I just want to touch on it, regardless of your situation. That is just one of those things that is there. It does have an impact on any business, even if you're not going to be VAT registered. And then I suppose largely throughout, we'll just touch on the benefits of online accounting software. As Armand had said there, please, if there's anything, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I won't call you out by your names or anything if you think, oh, I don't really want to ask. Please do. It's funny, the one thing I do see on the day to day is people have a great further understanding of everything that their business does and everything. And there's just some real simple basics that people can do. Um, that that's what trips people up. So that's the element that we want to get you and use the online software because it gives you a lot of prompts. And again, with that, the big thing really is using software to your advantage. The last thing I want people to do is feel like, oh, like I've listened to them now and they've given all of this advice and they basically said that, this is the way that we should be going forward. So I'm just going to go out and I'm going to register now for, this subscription and then not use it. And that, again, that's something that, we would see that, there's a requirement that it's like, yes, I'm going to need to get it. So you just get it without really looking at what it's going to do for you and what you can get out of it. And I think that's the most important thing to start with. Like, so look at what your business model is and look at what you need. So, I think all softwares, like, we deal with Zero, Sage, Surf, Books, um, you name it, we've seen it. Like, Iris, there's plenty that are out there. The one thing I'd say is if it's free, it's not worth it. That would be my one kind of golden tip. Believe me, if I found a free piece of software that did accounts production or like bookkeeping production for you, I would be telling you. But so far to date, there definitely isn't one that's there. There's always some type of thing, and then just beware of the features of any of the things that if you're dealing with multi-currency, for example, like Zero would be my go-to. If you're domestic sales and there's not a great deal of volume, then QuickBooks or Sage, like you need to look what your business model is and just check against what's offered. um, Again, but I have no preference in terms of accounting softwares. As much as I chose Zero just to host the slides, it's just that was one I was using. Um, there's good features in all of them. If I could have an amalgamation of two or three of the systems together, then I think that would be perfect for me. Some of the fine recode functions are better on some of the others. Some of the VAT reporting or management reporting is easier to use on some software as opposed to others. It really is. It becomes a bit of a personal thing, and I think within that, that's really important too. Because if you're comfortable using a system, then you'll use it. If something is difficult for you, if something is, if there's a blocker or something that's there, then it's going to prevent you getting the most out of it. And then it just becomes another toy or another expensive cost, that you have. So with that, I say like buying the most expensive software that's out there as well is also not the answer. Because if you don't use 50% of what it offers, then what are you paying something for? So do check that, have a look at what's out there. In terms of that, like regardless of what system you use, there's some bookkeeping basics, the nuts and bolts, if you like, of any business, and they're all the same. It doesn't matter what you do, if it's marketplace, if it's retail, if it's catering, mechanical, like any of the. I almost think like a triangle. To have the basics of your bookkeeping down, if you have just three things, if you focus on three elements of your business, you'll be able to produce good balance sheets, good loss, good management accounts, good cash flow analysis. And those things are your sales, so the invoicing that you're putting out, the purchases, which is what you're buying in terms of being able to do your business, and then bank reconciliation. And I would almost list them in that order because that would be the recommended order, I'd say, to do things. Um, some of the terminology that's there, that's why I put in just a couple of the ones that you might see that people will refer to invoices and receipts in AP and AR, accounts payable and accounts receivable. And that's, we use those terms not to try and be fancy. It's more to do with the fact that an accounts payable is something that you might not actually pay at the time, but it's a cost that's incurred by the business. So having it recorded is important. The same in terms of your accounts receivable, where you may invoice someone, but you're not going to get paid for, 2 or 3 months. But you still want to have it recorded that there's money that's going to be due to you. And I suppose that brings me to an easy way to remember which way round they are is if you think AP, accounts payable, P is for payable, P is for purchases. So your accounts payable is your purchases. If you think of it in there, payable purchases, then you'll always know which side it's there. Believe me, like in all the years, I still have to think about that. I still have it in the back of my head. It's just like, oh, they want like, I need a accounts payable report. Which one is that? It's that payables purchases. And again, as I say, that is just so that what we're doing is recording all of the purchases made by a company at a time, and then all of them that you've invoiced at a time. So that's then what gives you things like the cash flow analysis, putting it like that. So, and again, that's when I said about doing the things in an order where you're doing your sales, then your purchases, and your bank reconciliation. Say, for example, if we only did things through bank reconciliation, which is a common thing that people will do, they'll look at their bank account and they'll just start assigning things. You might miss items that you've purchased, but not purchased yet. So, and they should be recorded against your business because that's a cost that's going to be incurred. So being prepared for it and knowing exactly what's there is very important. If you only look at the bank and you only look at what you've spent at any given time, then it doesn't give you that full picture. And that's, what you really want to get good records. Just a little touch on there on business expense. Just be wary that like most things are acceptable. Like doing the weekly shop and putting it through your business isn't. Um, you know, there's different rules. I suppose the thing to really make sure is if you're going and you're buying a new laptop, if you're going and you're getting a new mobile phone, make sure that you've actually got it registered in the company's address. It's things like that, so rather than your personal, you have to be really careful about crossover between your business expenses and personal expenses, and then what you can and can't claim. Ultimately, you can claim pretty much anything that is there in order to help with the production of your business. So, whereas there may be VAT that's not allowed, you can put your hotel stays, you can put your food that's down and everything like that, that's on. An interesting question there, for like, so in a working home environment, a portion of light, electricity, broadband, all of those things, that's what you do in your personal returns, rather than charging to your business. So if you're going to be charging electricity, if you're going to be charging, it has to be a business premises. It doesn't work to say, well, I work from home. So, for example, like I work remotely. In my personal returns in a year, or my against my payroll, I can claim back an allowance for the electricity that's used and an allowance for broadband. There's specific guidelines and everything that you'll get. That you'll find there's a lot of information and everything that's there. It does, like, having your home as your business, the primary function of your home will always be your home. Your primary function of your business is a bit like, so it doesn't work. You can't separate one from the other unless it's a commercial property. That's the only time you're going to be able to put in all of your electric and broadband directly, 100% of it. Um, there's nothing to say that, say, for example, if you wanted mobile broadband, that you can get a mobile broadband registered in a company name and put that through. But yeah, you have to be careful. So there's a lot of information you'll find even on the Pinor page around business expenses and everything that's there. But there's different ways that you can that's it. But you just kind of have to feel like, of anything, like what is the primary function of that expense? Like so. And it's a very, very good question because there's registered addresses, that they can be your home address, they can be like COSEC addresses and everything that can be used. And there's a real definition between what is, an office and what is, uh, your personal or your home.
That's a good explanation, Justin. That cleared things up for me too, because I was in thinking if I was working at home, I could possibly spend that. So it's good worth mentioning the commercial side there, like you did. Just one thing I do want to ask is, would it be beneficial perhaps for someone to try? You mentioned there, if a software is free, it's not worth it. And I actually agree with you because, like you said, you'll be losing some features that you may need. But equally, do you think it's worth someone perhaps just trying a free trial with the software just to see if it's something that they could benefit from? Or do you find that, they're all more or less the same, like your Zero, Sage, QuickBooks?
Yeah, like I suppose the primary function of all of them is very much the same. Like what you do will be there. Um, yes, I would definitely. I suppose it's if something's free, if you get like, I think like 99% of the softwares will give you at least a month, and then a lot of them will offer you like, you can have a reduced fee for 6 months or my one thing is that I would still do my homework first before I would get like, you're always going to invest time, and I suppose this is one of those like it comes down to that benefit as well. The idea of what you're going to do to move things online is that it will save you the cost of your admin. And so this is how I would kind of justify the cost of paying for software. Like, value your time is the first
Mhm.
thing I would say. So, you know, piece of software is going to cost you, let's go for like mid, like, if it's going to be 40 euros a month, like, 40 euros a month for a new business can be a lot of money. Now, that being said, if that 40 euros saves you 5 hours of admin time, and that's 5 hours extra that you can spend on the function of your business. So I think it's very worthwhile, to have that payout. Like, you think if if you were to take my services for an hour, that's going to cost you a lot more than a subscription, and to what you might have to do down the line to go in and fix things. And I suppose that's where, like, say if anything that's free, I think what you have to watch is something can be too cheap, and then it's, oh, I didn't realize you wanted to do account production. I didn't realize that you wanted to do that. I didn't realize it. And well, you can add that on for an extra five. You can add that on for an extra 10. And all of a sudden you're like, well, if I'd have just gone with that one package four, I would have actually got everything cheaper. So
Mm.
it's almost that, package holiday versus buying all the individual elements, scenario that's there. But I'd say the one thing, like, value your time. Also, just be prepared to, when you first go into software, you will have to set things up. You will have to do things like set up a contact list, set up your products and services, and that will take time. But the benefit of that is you never have to do it again. The good thing is if you do find that you've started with a system and you just don't like it, and it happens, you're just like, look, I thought this was going to offer me more. It doesn't mean that you have to just scrap all of that and start again. Um, again, like, you can talk to us. It's very easy for us to be able to take down a bulk of information and load that bulk information onto a new system, so that it doesn't have to be as painful as you might think. There's no good or bad time either. There was that it's kind of like urban myth that you think like, right, well, I'm going to have to wait for my year end and then I'll do it. And you don't have to. If your books are in a reasonable order, and either just pick a time that you can. Some of the times, having a focus on your year end is going to be busy. Like, you're going to have to be getting everything ready for that. Do you actually want the added pressure of adding a new software on at that time? Maybe not. So do it, either 2 months after, a couple of months, or, you can get yourself prepared and get yourself ready so that it's a painless as possible part that's there. I say, the benefits, that I suppose they're listed there. Like, you can go through the fact that you can work from anywhere does give you that freedom of access, freedom of that information that you can have. Like, if you're out on the road with your business, if have people that are doing things for you, that are working away, being able to have that conversation around it. I suppose, like, just as in general now, we really have adapted to a more cloud-based live. I don't think there's hardly anything that you can purchase now or go on to without it being like a click or go through everything that comes through. So all you're doing is adding your business to that process, and it makes it better for your customers and everything as well. Then, if you're getting paid, quickly and productively, then there's not really anything else that can be better. I suppose because that information and everything is out there as well, you've got to think about your perception, when you're going out to clients and everything as well. We are in an AI generation now. If you're giving someone a Word, page that's an invoice, they're like, right, okay, this guy just working out of his bedroom, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you can still give a better impression. You can still be, a more professional outlook and production that's out there, to really assist. And I think there's just a bit of that buyer's confidence that comes along with those. And I mean, it's completely false. Just because someone's working in their basement rather than in some big, 20-story office doesn't make one better than the other. But there's a perception thing that's there, and I think that's important. It's that whole marketing thing and everything that's around it. So, I do think it's worth it. But a little bit of research, a little bit of advice, what works for one person won't work for everyone. Works differently, even within the function that we have here at Knorr. Like, we're close to 100 employees, and I think you do well to find two people that will work in the exact same way, but our end function is the same. Like, so just people will do things in a different way.
Absolutely.
Um, in terms of, like, as I say, the first part that's there, and again, this is Zero as an example, and there's on the right hand side there you see of the anatomy of an invoice. Again, you'll find a lot of information that's available to you on what an invoice should have. The good thing around any of the softwares, regardless of what it is it prompts you. So it does the prompts, like you have to put in dates, you have to put in a contact, you have to have an invoice number, you have to have what the good is, what it costs, how many, if there's that. It will prompt all of those questions, and it won't allow you to progress unless they're marked. So it's really beneficial like that. And I have a personal thing around invoice numbers. And like, especially, it's totally illogical, but there is that part that it's very much, um, don't start with number one. Don't just have like, my first invoice is going to be number one. I would recommend to you that you, like, come up with some system that you can understand, so you can still have things in an order, But again, it's my thing where if you're sending someone to someone and it's number one, they'll be like, oh, I'm the first. In my head, I'm thinking, are they going to be looking? They're going to be asking for a discount. Oh, I didn't realize this is the first time you've ever done this, or the first time you've ever sold. Is it going to be any good? Just a simple thing like putting in 2501, and that's the year is 2025, and it's the first invoice of 2025. All of a sudden, we're on our 2501st invoice number. It's a little thing, and like 100%, it's a personal thing. It doesn't change your business in any way. It's just my own kind of thoughts in terms of invoicing and invoice numbers. Um,
I have to say though, Justin, if I'm client number 1,000, it would make me feel quite special though.
yeah, yeah.
Seeing that.
They're busy. Look at all the stuff that they're doing. Um, you know, so systems are there to make it easier for you. Another key thing as well, and it's funny, the amount of times when people did their own invoicing or sending their own invoices and forget to put how they want to get paid on it, and it's so common. You think like so that's something that would sound like really basic, yeah, it gets left off. So there's an interesting one that's there. So make sure that you've got payment details on there, especially now, where things have kind of moved on from that tear off remittance slip at the bottom. Another great thing with most of the accounting softwares is that you can link your banks directly to it. So you see here within Zero, this is the invoice and how it would look, and it shows the way that they can pay when that gets emailed to a client. So having that contact list and everything that's built up there with their email and address and everything, there's actually a click button and it follows them around the page. That's like pay now. So it's like what you might be used to if you're going in and buying things from Marks and Spencers or a store online. um that's where you go in and you click it and it moves it on and everything that's there. So that's great for you in terms of a business. It's automatic. It makes it go in. You can connect your stripes, any of those. So if you're in marketplace, I think like getting as much connectivity as possible is key around successful production and everything that's there. But ultimately, as I say, there's lots of information that you'll find even on Kenora again around the anatomy of an invoice. But just make sure you've got a date on it, when you're expected to get paid, what your items are. And again, like, even doing this the first time, it will save this against that inventory. So if you think I don't want to have to sit there and go through all of my products one by one, but they can build up as the sales go on. Your contacts, put as much information about the contact that you're selling into uh, there. You never have to do it again. The next time you do it, will generate. There's a lot of the systems as well where it'll even, if I was looking up, ABC, then will bring up what the last invoice was. So I almost get a prompt of, oh, this is what they had before, which is really useful as well in terms of you think, oh, just interesting. I forgot the last time that I actually charged them an extra half an hour's consultancy fee or whatever your business is. So it can be a great prompt that's there. So the other side of that is receipts. And so there's a couple of elements of receipts, and I think it's important to touch on. Zero has HubDoc that's built into it, so you can load everything, like, you can forward all your mail that's there. QuickBooks has a function. Uh, Sage has a function with auto entry. Uh, you might have heard of Dext Prepare as well. That does receipt funks. Basically, think of any of those add-ons, and they are definitely worth it. They're worth using. They become like your filing cabinet, so you can put any information into those. The example that's in there, they'll even highlight if there's potential duplicates or if you've added something that's in. And if doing it through a receipt bank rather than doing it direct into your software, just as helpful for you know, I'm not sure whether I've actually put that one in or not. Put it into there, and it will, highlight all of these things out, as does Dex. They work in a very similar way. You can keep a bank statement in here. You can have all of this, and it's available to be shared. So, for example, within HubDoc, I can create lots of different users. Now they don't see my accounts; they'll only ever see their HubDoc. So if Armand was working for me and he was out on the road and I just want him to collect all of his receipts and send them in, he can do that through HubDoc without then seeing what's in the company's bank account, what's we're billing anybody, so it becomes a really good way of being able to keep all of that information. And again, one of those things is people, they get scared of bookkeeping because they think they have to do it all the time. Like if you've got these practices in place, doing your bookkeeping on a month by month basis is more than enough. You don't have to go in week after week or day after day and make that right. The first thing I need to do is check if everything's been paid. If you're running that business that tightly, then I say that there could be elements of concern that's there where you wonder, are you using you know your accounting software or the automation that's there to the best of it. With that receipt bank, to say you can forward, so there's a mail forwarding on all of them. That's if you get sent a receipt for something, you can just automatically forward it in. What it does is it reads the information from a receipt. It puts all the key information, so the date it was sent, when it needs to be paid, how much it is, if there was VAT on it, and it has it ready. And then you decide how you want to transfer that information into your software. The good thing with all of them as well is it has a memory. So it will start to recognize. So if we put in a Knorr invoice in there, it will start to recognize that, oh, hey, here's the Knorr invoice. The last time it got posted to consulting and accounting, and there was 23% VAT included, and it'll do all of those steps and everything for you. So all you need to do is click a button and it'll send everything on. Most of them have got great two-way integration as well. So if you're updating a contact on one, it'll update the contact on another, and vice versa. If you're updating VAT rates, anything comes straight across. So, and it's that live information, which is great. We find it really useful when we're talking with clients then as well. That they can have that piece of information, that they can see, and they can see you doing the work. And it's like, oh, right, that's how it works. A lot of the training calls and everything I do is very much like, oh, right, it's like having a security blanket. And it's like, I see how they do that. Now I know how to do it. And when it's done once, most of the time, that general rule will keep on following. So your bookkeeping function at the end of a month becomes really straightforward. It doesn't have to be, right, I need to enter in all of these invoices. Another side to that as well is don't have to keep all the paper records if you've got something like this. If you've got digital records are sufficient for the likes of revenue, for audit. That they're actually really really useful. Just reading from one of the ones there.
I think, and that is actually something I'm thinking of too, Justin. If you've got an Excel sheet on hand and you want to perhaps import the details on Zero, that's quite easy to upload. I think with some receipts, you can even take a photo as well.
Yes, and that is enough.
Mhm.
And certainly the way receipts are being produced, there's a lot of that thermal paper and everything that's there that if it sits in the sun for a day, it's gone. The key information is gone. So having that digital picture that's there. An interesting question there, sorry, that's just in, and it's good in terms of this. So there's a couple of elements to that. Like it is never too soon to start your accounting journey, or like your cloud software basis. If you're doing all of your invoices and purchases through Excel, nothing wrong with it. However, the time that you're doing, I would say, if you actually, even if you were, in wanted to go with a real basic package. You can build it up as they go, but like start doing it because you're building information that's there. So it will give you like if you take Sage for example, Sage will do VAT-free returns based on the information that you've put in very easily. So it'll do all of that work for you. It's also keeping all of your receipts. It's also keeping a real record and everything that's there. So you don't if you haven't got an accountant at that time, you're looking, that you'll go an accountant down the line. If you go to an accounts team and you then um, have all of that information, you can show them the cost of the services that you'll require will be less. So it's one of those penny wise, pound foolish scenarios, where like, there's definitely nothing wrong with using Excel. Um, as I say, my own thing is the time that you've probably spent already on doing that on a month by month basis. If you'd have done it for 2 months, for example, on Sage, you wouldn't have half of the work to do it the third month. And then the fourth month, you'd have even less again because there'll be patterns. You're just you're going to be aware of that fact that your invoices are going to be sequential. There's less room for error. You can some of the systems they'll say where you can have like you can produce like 5 invoices a month at start. Like that's enough. Like getting your journey started on accounting software. Again, as I said at the beginning, doesn't have to be where right. I'm got this real big expensive system and I'm going to be doing absolutely everything now. You don't have to start like that. You can start with a basic package and you can upgrade that package when you're ready. So as your business grows, then you can grow your package and everything with you. And I suppose that's the real benefit. And 100%, I understand where everyone's nervousness would come in when it comes to accounting software. I was very much a Excel sheets type of guy. I still have my trusty Excel templates and everything that are there that they try and pry out of my hands. And it's just, I suppose I'm just of an age where that was just how we used to work. Now, that being said, like now, um, there's just so many benefits to the accounting software and like starting it early in your business is only a benefit. That's what I would say. Um, in terms of like bank reconciliation, then, and I say I put that last, and I suppose there's two reasons why I say that it's last. Your bank might not be the full picture. So if you only do everything through your bank and you do reconciliation through your bank, then you might be missing things. So if you've paid for something on, a personal credit card instead of a company credit card, if you pay for something cash, that's not going to be recorded on your bank feed. It's not going to be recorded in your bank because you've done it outside. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to say that all my business expenses, they can only ever go through my business bank. I can only ever use my company credit card for purchases because like we're human. It happens. You know, I'm in the bar on New Year's Eve and I decide to get everyone that's worked for me for the year a round of drinks and I haven't got my company credit card with me. You don't just turn around to one and say, "Well, I would have done it, but I don't have that card with me, so sure, I'll get you the next time." You just pay for it, or you use your personal card. Those are those things that it's either funds introduced or drawings that you have, and that's how you record those. But if you have that receipt, it doesn't matter if it's got a different credit card number. It doesn't matter if it says cash on it. You can then put that receipt against the way it was paid. So, if you bought something, then, that's funds that you've introduced into that business so that you can put it in as that. If you've used the other way around, if you use your company credit card for something personal by mistake, because that was the only one that you had with you and you really needed to purchase, that new pair of shoes, you can take that out as drawings and you can mark that receipt in there as drawings. It doesn't so it doesn't get registered against your business. Just like that's the money that was gone in there, and I've taken that money out of my business. Um, think of it like that. So again, with that reconciliation, that's why it won't work if you just do bank reconciliation. I say with connections like Revolut, I'll be honest. I love Revolut in terms of its connectivity. You know, it's really good for linking with. I was never that much of a fan of their receipts section that they do within um, Revolut. And I don't want to do it an injustice because, to be honest, I know they've done an awful lot of work to make it more user friendly within systems and everything that's there. So my issue always used to be that if you, again, like if you've got all of your eggs in that one basket, then everything just tends to relate to just what is in your bank. Whereas I would always say, keep your receipts separate, make sure your invoicing is good and clear, and then your bank reconciliation becomes much easier. Bank reconciliation is like playing bingo or snap. Like you're looking. It's like, right, that's what was spent. That's what we're doing. The other benefits of it is for example, and this works again on both sides. If you've invoiced someone like €1,000 and they're going to pay you 500 now, and they're going to pay you 500 in a month's time, if you were to only do that through your bank, then you're only recording that 500 that you have in your bank on that day, and you're creating your invoice out of that. Rather than having an invoice that's 1,000, you can make partial payments. So that 500 you pay against the 1,000, and it will leave you with that 500 balance. It also means then if you're running, that debtors list, you'll be able to see, oh, this person still owes me 500, rather than waiting to see what comes in the bank and then thinking about, so what was that 500 for? Oh, I think that was because this person owed me. Uh, you can set up bank rules. There's things like bank fees. They don't, you don't get a receipt for a bank fee every single time that you do it. A lot of the times they'll give you like a quarterly statement in terms of fees. So you can set up bank rules, like, so it can recognize fees and it can cash what we call cash code. Cash code is where it'll say like, right, that's a fee. So you know what, we're going to put that to bank fees, and it gets balanced off. So that does that reconciliation. So if you don't have the receipt, it doesn't recognize you don't have to think like, well, I don't have a receipt for wages, for example. I don't have a receipt for, the bank fees. And there'll always be items like if there's things like parking or something, you might not have that physical receipt or it might be gone. It doesn't mean that you can't ever reconcile your bank. You just code it instead. So you'll say like, right, that was a parking fee. I just don't have that receipt. Um, you also might find that there's things like insurance, that you pay either monthly installments, but they don't send you a monthly bill. Like, that it'll be this is your insurance for the year. It's going to be 500 and it's going to be in these installments. So you don't want to have to then load those each time. There's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can either just have a rule in there where all of your insurance payments go to insurance. There's no VAT liability or anything on that, so you don't have to show that's there, but like keep the receipt, or you can put that receipt in as a start of the year. So say in January, you can put that receipt in for 500, and you can chip away at it. You can pay off. So here's my 60 for this month. Here's my 60 for this month. Here's my balance, and then it's paid. So eventually, that receipt goes down and down and down and down. There's no one way isn't more preferable to the other. It's more about having it recorded, and again, it's having that's an expense to your business. So you've got that overall picture. No, just having those three things, that is it. That is your bookkeeping done. You know, um, there's no more that needs to be done to that in order to be able to see, what your VAT liabilities may be, what your profit and loss is. you know Once you have 2 or 3 months, and again, in relation to that question of doing it on Excel versus doing it on the online software, I would say if you had 4 or 5 months worth of information, you would get free short-term cash flow analysis. So you can run a report that will very basically what it does is it says this is average what you're spending in a month. This is what bills are coming up. This is what invoicing that you've got coming up, and this is what you have left. You can also do things like set up um, accounts watch lists as well. So like if you want to say if you're running an advertising campaign, like you want to see what is coming out of it. You think like, right, this advertising campaign, I'm going to do it through Facebook, and I'm going to invest, €100 a month on the campaign. Um, and certainly with anything like those Google Analytics or anything that's like that, where it has that sliding scale, so you can decide how much you want to put into it. But you can have that as a watch list then against the sales, so that you can see, what, it wasn't worth it, or the opposite is like, wow, my return was great on the 50 or 100 that I spent. What would happen if it went to 200? Will I get that same level of you know involvement or sale out of it? So having all of that without having to do any extra work, without having to do any more than what you've done. Um, Hopefully that's the sort of thing that you think like, my God, that would be great if I had that. It'd be great to know what's there. It's just there is that the other side of it as well is when it comes to the purchases, like anyone would always recommend if someone's going to give you credit, then take it. So long as it's not going to cost you. Like, there's that, if someone's going to let you pay for something over 6 months, it's not going to cost you any more for the base product, then buy it over the 6 months. Don't put that cost on yourself straight away. And what you'll find with a lot of new business is they'll panic about, right, I've got this, I need to buy everything now today. Um, and depending on the business that you're in, that can tighten, the noose, so to speak, because it doesn't free up maybe that extra bit of cash that you would have to invest in your business a little bit more. Uh, like so, it's like right. Well, I have to wait until I've got some money coming in before I can buy my next round of product, or so having cash flow and really studying it can be really important because it's very difficult. Like there's you know I can't think of any business that's just going to start with loads of money coming in and no money going out. It usually is money will flow one way, and it becomes very exciting then when you see that money start to come back in and claw against the outgoings and everything that you've had. So be smart about it. Like if someone's letting you pay at the end of a month, pay them at the end of the month. But again, you can use the system that's here, and it will give you that prompt that this is now due. So if you're doing that on Excel, if you're doing it on like more manual, you have to go back and constantly check. Oh, when did I have to pay this one again? Or you're doing something that's very much focused on, you mentally remember. And ultimately, as I said before, like bookkeeping's not that exciting where we want you to sit there at night thinking of who you need to pay and who you need to invoice. Let a system do it for you. And the advancements in the technology over the past 5 years are unreal. Like there was a real nervousness, I would say, 5 years ago, around that COVID period, but it really pushed people into having to do it. And but with that, it created such a demand that it allowed all of these softwares. Like I'm a Sage 50 sort of guy. That would have been my go-to on the desktop, and now I couldn't imagine working that way. I couldn't I even see, and that's an accounting software, great accounting software. And I couldn't imagine only working in that way when there's so many cloud options and everything that are there. So um,
And I think, Justin, the demand is only going to increase in time. I can't see
ah,
that slowing down anytime soon.
the features and functions that they add on throughout a year, it's only going to make it bigger and better. So don't be afraid to make a joke. Don't be afraid to make mistakes as well. I should say that to people. Like I have only once. So I've 5 years with Knorr, and only once have I ever recommended to someone to just stop and start again. And the only reason why we did it is because there wasn't that much information that it was actually just easier for us to input it correctly than to go back and change the items that would need correcting. It was the difference between, right, it's going to take us 4 hours to do that, or it's going to take us half an hour to just start again. But only once have I ever seen that. Everything can be corrected. Don't be nervous about, I've put a sale in as a purchase, or like I've put this purchase in and it's not. Like, I've reconciled the bank and I've reconciled it to the wrong thing. All of these things are made to be fixed, and every single thing can be done. The only part of it there is there's like a audit trail that will always be there. So it doesn't highlight your mistakes, but it keeps it there for your own protection. So, if you have raised an invoice, but then it was a mistake, then there's a proper way to credit it out and do the right way. Um, but yeah, don't be afraid. Every single one has like a demo company that's built into it as well. So you can practice sending receipts, you can practice doing any of that information. And it really, it makes the journey better for you. Um, Quick touch in terms of VAT, and I suppose the one thing I would always say is you might not be VAT registered, you might not be thinking that you're ever going to be VAT registered, but please be aware of the VAT regulations and that they could affect you in the future. The thresholds as they stand at the moment are 42,500 for services, 85,000 for goods. The one thing I always mention within this webinar is just if you're looking at a tax exempt business, if you think that your business is tax exempt, then just consult with someone. Like whether it's that you send a message into the client services at Kinor, or reach out and get some advice, because a tax exempt business sounds great on the face of it. It's like, well, I don't need to be VAT registered because everything I do is tax exempt. It's tax exempt business. There are certain items around a tax exempt business that might trigger a VAT registration, and it doesn't even come into the threshold. So even something as simple as a Canva subscription in the United States could trigger your need for a VAT registration in a tax exempt business. Um, and it's basically there to protect businesses that aren't tax exempt, so that there's more of a level playing field and everything that's there. Um,
I do see we have a question, and thank you for sharing the question, Fiona. No such thing, like Justin said,
yeah,
as a silly question. We actually encourage questions to be asked, so please feel free to fire away. She just asked the, with regards to the records, are we keeping all these daily and monthly records to ultimately go toward the end of year accounts?
yes, yeah. Um, I suppose you should always, like, the more records that you have, the better your accounts production is always going to be. And I suppose it's always in terms of those parts where you don't know that you may randomly have things like a revenue audit that could happen at any time. Um, and that's got nothing to do with you having a bad record or anything like that. You may, your accounts production, that they might ask for more information around what you do. Like there's so many things that's there. You should be keeping 7 years worth of records. Um, so it's not even a case that you get to your year end and then you don't worry about it. And that's why that digital option is always such a great filing cabinet, because it just saves you having to have boxes and boxes and boxes of information that's there. But yeah,
In this
I
case, I
suppose
think,
yeah,
Justin,
the end
it's
goal is annual accounts, but running your business, like having good books, will allow you to make good business decisions. So don't just focus on it being a yearly obligation. Um, you know,
having more year is better than, having less, I guess.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like I suppose I was here a couple of years, and a client that had been with us for um, longer than that, but they come from a very Excel words kind of basis for everything that they were doing, and we got them on software, and and within 6 months they actually realized that there was an element of their business that wasn't making them any money. It was actually, it actually cost them to do it, and they were never aware of that because they'd done everything that was done. And they just had that end figure. They were like, oh, well, we're making a profit. So yeah, perfect. We're making a profit. And subsequently, they didn't actually get rid of what they did. They just modified it, changed it around. Um, so it could be interesting. Like those are those things that keeping the records and keeping things up to date. Yes, it does make that year-end accounts production less painful, but it also gives you a really good insight in terms of how your business is growing. And sadly or not, but like just because a business doesn't grow doesn't mean that it's not going to be successful. And that's very important to say as well. Just means that maybe there's a focus on different areas that you need to look on. So just in terms of that, then different VAT codes, as will be aware, 23% standard rate of VAT, 13.5 is the reduced rate. Um, then there's a 9% second reduced rate. There's a farming rate, and then there's a 0% rate and a tax exempt rate, and they are not the same thing just because they are both zero. So that's where we get into like that tax exempt. I'll keep saying tax exempt, tax exempt. That's in there. But 0% is something that there's just certain products that run at a 0%. Um,
Just to that question in the webinar, not really a question, but just more thought that was shared. Something that I can suggest, Fiona, and to all the other attendees, if you're unsure of anything, on the page Justin's sharing there, it shows Canor.com. If you go to our website, there's lots of useful articles that may give you that pre-insights that you may need. Of course, our contact details are available if you'd like to reach out. And even more so, what we're doing today, we do frequently. You'll see on our website there is a section for webinars specifically that goes into other aspects of your business, or any ideas that you may have, but you'd like a bit more of the accountancy side of things. Feel free to check those out.
yeah, don't be afraid to question your accountants either.
Mm.
Like, um, very much like you. No one knows your business like you do. That's the one thing I would always say. Like, we can only assist, but there's nothing wrong with pushing back. Uh, as I said, and it's like revenue are very, very helpful. Um, except if you need a very specific answer to something, because it's very much how you word a question to revenue that you'll always get a response. Now, you don't have to have an accountancy background, to be able to go out and look for that service and know what you're getting and know what you want to get from it. It's in that same way as that a cloud. That's why I'd say before, like, write what you want. What you want is going to be the right thing. What someone else wants is what they want. Like, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. It can't be that cut and dried. Like, don't be afraid to make that mistake. You know, as I say, we're not in the business of saving lives, just in that, like, the idea of it is that we just give you some comfort. And the idea with the club is it's not a hard sell. It's just to give you those tips that you don't sit there like thinking at night, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go and study accountancy in order to do my business. I'm going to have to go and learn to be a book. You don't, you know, there's support services that are there. But I tell you, the way these accounting softwares are going, they do so much work that we didn't do before that would have been the work of bookkeepers, and now it's more of a record gathering, and it's just then how it's reported. That's how these things work. So never be afraid to make the mistakes. Never be afraid to ask the questions. Like, and if someone doesn't want to work with you and answer those questions, then they're not the right person for you. Like, I could be that brutally honest, even regarding ourselves, and it's just one of the I suppose you know I've always dealt with people. We always have a more personal approach that's there. That what works for one doesn't work for the other. It's the same with those softwares. It's the same with everything that's there. Just because I like a particular one and it does it and it works for me does not mean it's going to work for you. If you have a different way of working, so there's no like, the important thing is make it work for you, regardless whether it's an accountancy service, bookkeeping service, anything that's there. It has to work for you, because if it doesn't, then again, it's just a tool, and it's something that is going to keep you awake and it is going to make you worry. You want to know that there's a security that's there. It's like, right, I'm happy with everything that I'm doing. I know my business. I know, how it's gone. I'd love to just know this little thing, and that's where the help should be coming. Um, so just in terms of the VAT, and I suppose just to be aware that there is those reporting regulations and everything that's around there. There's different types of VAT reporting. Just be aware. I suppose my main thing about saying about VAT is it can really affect pricing. So, and I saw it was an analogy about like two builders that side by side, and one makes sure that he stays under a threshold so he doesn't have to pay VAT, and the other one um, goes over. And it's like, well, why does one cost so much and why does the other one cost less? And it's, well, one's registered for VAT, so they have to charge the 23%. So that's why it costs you more. Think about that. If you're doing a business, like say you were writing CVs for someone and you charge €100 for it, and that goes really, really well for you, you make a threshold. All of a sudden, that service that you did, you got two options. You either keep charging 100 and you'll lose 23% of it because you have to declare that, or you have to put that service that you once did for 100 up to 123. Now that client might turn around and go, "Well, hang on a second. Last month I only paid you 100. And why now am I having to pay you?" I mean, they don't like that is always incurred somewhere along a line, and that's it's one of those things. When we get back questions, we'll always say like, where is the VAT going to be, incurred? And that's what you have to think. Like that person that comes down to it, it's their pocket of, well, he's going to do it for 100, and you're going to do it for 123. So I'm going with 100 because what you're going to do is the same. It's just that one's not going to charge me VAT on top. Now, if I'd started my business and I thought, you know what, I'm going to charge 120, then when it comes to that point where I've got a VAT threshold to be there, I can keep charging 120 and I'll just incur that small percentage difference. Yes, but like I've made, that extra 20 more than I was going to for those times. So it's a bit of a crude analogy, but it's definitely something that's worth thinking about. Think about the VAT impact. Now, obviously, when you are VAT registered, you can claim VAT back as well, and that's a key thing that's there. And again, within that, just be aware of that. That if you're claiming VAT back, then look at where you're purchasing things from. Yes, it could be great that you can be buying um, services from you know rest of world and they're not charging you the VAT, but like, is it going to actually be better than the domestic product that I can get? But yes, it's going to be VAT, but I can claim that VAT back. Should work out around the same, but like it's an interesting analogy in terms of, and this is where tax exempt comes in, and that's I won't go into it much, but ultimately, if you have a tax exempt business where you're not charging anyone VAT, but then you're buying all of your services and you're getting all of your advertising done, at 0% because you're buying it through Europe or you're buying it through uh, America or China or anything like that. What you'll find is there's a reverse charge mechanism that will kick in where you have to declare 23% of everything that you've bought from outside the domestic market, and you're not allowed any reclaim on that. So if you spent 10,000 on advertising to an American firm to sell your VAT exempt business, there's 23% of that 10,000, so 2,300 extra you have to pay a cost of revenue with no reclaim because you're in a non-reclaim position, but you have to declare it for VAT purposes. So that's like the larger scale of it's there. I say like it usually involves things around coaching and teaching and medical that's around, but like just if it's something that said you think, geez, I'm in a tax exempt, you can have things like partial recovery, so you can run a business where elements of it are tax exempt and elements of it are taxable, which is common again that's there. So there's just different rules around it. I suppose, like, without going on and on, it's just very much be aware of that and the implications that it might have on your business in the future. Think big. We're like we'll encourage you that you're all going to be super successful. Um, so the majority of times, and I say it again, they like if you come across reverse charge, if you're charging that, all reverse charge does is there's a T1 figure and a T2. They cancel each other out. It's more like it's just a way of recording um, the amount of things that are purchased from outside of the domestic market, because you might have no option. Like the only thing what you're specialized in might only come from Spain or it might only come from America. So you have to purchase that. But then what you do is you charge the 23% on it and then you take it back off it. So they cancel each other out. It's only because of that reverse charge mechanism in the event of a tax exempt business can have an effect or a partial recovery. Um, but 90% of businesses that's in there. Uh, yeah, there's a good question. They bill you as consultants, or are they? Yeah, I tell you what, Fiona, drop me a message. Um, justin@kinor.com. Um, no, I love it. I do. I just what I wouldn't want to do is give you a real sweeping statement that might or might not react to you. But like being tax exempt is not a negative. It's just be aware and elements of the business it's in, and they can be very precise reasons as to why. There's also um, I've dealt with coaching companies before. It's just how the people that work for you across the Europe or in the UK or any of those, it's how like are they going to be employees or are they going to be consultants? Because if they're consultants, then that can affect the reverse charge mechanism in terms of regardless of whether they're back registered or not. So there's a broader aspect that's there to say. But yeah, feel free to drop me a line and I can point you in the right direction for some of the elements, but could be a little bit specific. I think that brings me to an end. I say thanks very much for the input. Um,
Yeah, I think, Justin, that's a very good example of what happens in one business might not be suitable for the other. And with that said, of course, all businesses are different. So if you'd like to reach out to us, please feel free to do so on any of the details provided there. If you found any value in the webinar today, please feel free to leave us a review. I'll share that link here shortly, but I do thank you for your time, Justin, and thank you to everyone for attending. And we'll definitely be seeing you soon.
yes, yeah. Well, give me a month's reprieve. September the 17th. Will be where we'll go through it again. I say
On
do play it back. So obviously I talk over a lot of the screens as they're playing it out, but don't be afraid. Do use the demos, use the free periods of time to have a lot of a look around and see what you like and don't like with it. So a lot of the times as well, we can offer a service where we'll take you through at the beginning, like it's like an hour's call or something, like to get you pointers on a setup, so that you'll have that. You can record the call as well, so it can be a bit more personalized as a service that's offered as well by us. So um, we tend to do that, and then we find that they rarely speak to me again. I'll have those because we told them everything that they needed to do, and they realize it is very straightforward. You know, if you have a system in place, just having the system in place is the key thing. But best of luck with your businesses. It's an exciting opportunities for you. Um, there's nothing better. I ran my own business for a number of years, so I loved it. Um, I've just gone for the security of working with someone. When you have the children and everything there, it was just a great. But like I always have a great deal of admiration for people that go out and do it for themselves. So you should really applaud yourselves for that.
Absolutely. And thank you for the questions, Fiona. Thank you, Justin, for the time. And I hope everyone has a lovely day further.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
Bye bye.